This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
I don't know why, but it's a side of using pedals that I don't think we see too much of in terms of pedal demos, in terms of people talking about how they use pedals either. But there are a few, and I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of you, hopefully, that can point me in the direction of other players that do this sort of thing. But I was checking out Eric Johnson's course on TrueFire. TrueFire sponsored the channel, and there's a chunk on there about some of the gear that he uses, as well as it being like the very best kind of close-up shots that I've seen of Eric's playing. So if you're a fan of Eric Johnson like me, I've been waiting for something like this for quite a while. It's interesting just to really be able to see the mechanics kind of close up, and it turns out he uses his middle finger more than I was expecting, as well as, you know, tab for all of the stuff. And there's a masterclass and in the jam. You can use the code JNC100 if you want $100 off of their all access pass, where you get access to any of their courses for the year. Or you could use the code JNC40 to buy specific courses that you can keep forever. 40% off, obviously. When it comes to pedal demos and stuff like that, typically, and I was watching that pedal show the other day, Mick was demoing his Keeley modded Ibanez Tube Screamer, and it sounded incredible. And normally when I check out pedals, I'll be going into a clean amp. The other thing that I see people talk a lot about is kind of the edge of breakup, where you'll kind of on that threshold where you can sort of dig in for a bit of a more driven sound, or play lighter for a bit of a whatever, you know, cleaner sound. So I think someone like Rhett Scholl kind of lives in that space more so. And I think that's where quite a lot of pedal demos sit, because basically quite a lot of pedals sound pretty good there. So that edge of breakup or clean. Now for gigs, I have to have like an actual clean tone, because we're doing kind of funky, soul-y stuff as well as rock stuff, but you do need like an actual clean without kind of hair on it, is what I've found anyway. So when it comes to using real amps, there's a few reasons which I'm going to go into in this video and try and work that out with you, that I haven't tried this. But I was borrowing this TSL off of Chris Elphick. I was watching this Eric Johnson thing, and then Wayne sent me, he had gone to the Woodshed and the Woods thing, and they were able to look at his board and take pictures and stuff. I think Eric is actually using a 2-rock for his driven amp now, but obviously for decades he's been using like a Marshall Plexi with the channels jumped, with the gain up quite high, and I thought, well, that hopefully maybe is going to be somewhat similar in terms of levels of gain. I've got this on the crunch channel sort of about maybe 75% of the way up, so let's just investigate this a little bit, and you're going to notice the problems, but hopefully also notice that there's something quite cool about this. I've got a Dover drive over here, by the way. The volume's at about 9, the tone is about 4, and the gain is at about 4. A crunch channel by itself can, for me, not quite have enough gain to do the thing. So I'm obviously a single coil player, but I use quite a lot of gain to get quite saturated. That's actually sounded pretty good like that. Drive on. Now, the problems with this, if you've got noise happening, as you can hear, I've got this connected with a power supply, so that noise is getting magnified. Another thing is, like, in terms of proximity, I'm getting loads of kind of gain just from being close-ish to the amp, and this is probably the sort of distance that I would be away from an amp at a gig. You know, typically stage setups at dodgy weddings are not amazing. If I was to try that into just a clean, you hear, so basically, like, here's just the clean. Here's the Dover drive. Here's the dirt. I first tried this with the Blues driver from Boss. Now, this is obviously not an expensive boutique pedal or anything. This was what really kind of made me think, well, I've been missing out on trying this, and I want to try and figure out my way around some of these problems that I'm encountering, because I just feel like there is something to this. Blues driver. And what's kind of occurring to me is that I'm getting kind of tones that I'm enjoying more than potentially. So typically I'd be using a channel switching amplifier, and I've not necessarily had the best results in that way, but kind of, I don't know, I'm feeling like I've been missing out on this to some extent. So here I've got a fuzz face, the silicon version, the Jimi Hendrix kind of signature thingy. And fuzzes, I've never really tried this sort of thing at all. So let's just see, this could go way off the rails. So my clean, well, this is the point, it's not a clean, isn't it? Obviously, it's quite a crunchy. Here's my crunch. So that fuzz face, here's without the fuzz face. What do you reckon? Is there something to this? So I think players that I'm aware of that do this sort of thing, obviously you've got your Eric Johnson who's running, you know, something plexi-ish sort of levels of gain. So you're going to be getting a crunchy-ish tone, right? I think Zach Wilde is a player. I think, if I remember correctly from Leon Todd's video, an SD1 into sort of a more martially type sound. So there's definitely going to have been players that have been doing this. The problems, as I see it, are a couple of things. So first of all, the noise. So would you introduce a noise gate if you were doing this sort of thing? Maybe. So that's an added complication. Second of all, what are you going to then do for your clean tone? So if it was a channel switching amp like this, then potentially I'd just switch over to a clean channel and then stomp off the overdrive. The other benefit with that, I guess, is that you've got a gain stage where you've got your actual drive pedal into the clean channel as well. So that's kind of a good thing. Then the next complication on top of stuff like that is if you use a delay pedal, as I do, then that has to go in the effects loop. And the effects loop, according to Psionic Audio, is a thing that people necessarily don't get right on the cheaper amps. Although this sounds really good to me, once you introduce an effects loop and that sort of stuff, maybe that would complicate things even more. So in this video, I'm going into a fractal X load and then out through an IR, which is also helping it sound manageable. Have you tried this? Have you, to me, the blues driver really shone in that situation. The Dover drive I'm going to have to do a little bit of tweaking with, but it also seems like the actual drive that you go up front with doesn't really make a ton of difference when you're talking about these levels of gain anyway. And I don't know what you'd think of that level of gain as. Would that be like a cranked plexi maybe, something like that? And then, yeah, even the fuzz face is kind of, it's doing something, but not a whole ton. Other things that I could do, I guess, to get within this vein would be to have something like the Angry Driver, or, you know, a governor-based pedal, right? And you have that kind of last in your drive gain stages, and then you could hit that with a blues driver up front, or a Dover drive, or a fuzz, right? I guess that would somewhat simulate this without having changed my rig too much. But is this something that you've thought about, ever tried? I think for me, I'm enjoying those tones enough that I'm thinking, well, maybe that might be worth a rethink in some ways. Am I going to be carting around 2 amps to do gigs with and figuring out a big dual amping rig? Probably not, but it is something that I think at home in the studio from now and again, you know, maybe putting a drive pedal in front of an already driven kind of purring amp might be a thing.